All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to this VCP training. I'm Ryan Beard. For those of you I haven't met, I'm the director here of Classification, Compensation, and Recruitment. And we're going to kind of go over the highlights that our board approved yesterday for both the Policy and Procedures Manual and the Variable Compensation Plan. Yeah, I don't anticipate this taking incredibly long. I've left plenty of time at the end for us to answer any questions you may have. But we're going to go through what changes were done during the VCP and the Policy and Procedures Manual based on this past session. So I'm going to go through them. Have plenty of time, like I mentioned, to ask questions at the end. I'm going to cut my camera off so you're not staring at my bald head while I'm looking at the notes, and we're just going to dive right in. So this is the VCP for FY 2025. This will be effective on July 1st. And we told our board this information yesterday, but I did want to share it with you all as well. Before we dive into the actual changes, this plan went live on January 1st of 2022.
Hey, Ryan, I don't think you're sharing your screen.
Thank you so much. Look at that. See, I remember my first Zoom call. I don't know what happened though, because it was shared and then it stopped being shared. Great. That better now?
Yes.
Great. All right. So we've been live for roughly 28, 29 months now. There are 16,569 employees who were active on January 1st of 2022 and still active as of May 1st. One of the biggest complaints in the old plan was employees stealing or being stolen from one agency to another to essentially do the same job for more money. As of May 1st, only 858 of those 16,000 plus employees were in a new master agency. So roughly a little more than 5% or less than 2.5% per fiscal year or per year of people changing agencies. And the average increase received when they changed agencies for those 858 was $10,900. Another thing I wanted to point out is that of those 16,569 employees who have been employed the entire time SEC Square was live, they received an average increase of $8,400 or 20.72%. So I did want to share that with you, that we feel really good about those numbers. We feel like we've kind of eliminated the huge problem we had with transfers and stealing people for more money for doing the same work. I will tell you the state personnel board's number is 3 times higher than that, but on the whole, the state is at 5.2%. So, substantive changes to the VCP. Obviously, we took the old appropriation language out and put the new appropriation language in. We did have one instance of restrictive language in an appropriation bill, so that's been added to the VCP for this year. The compliance report is going to change a little bit. We reduced the in-range adjustment amount like we had told you guys was coming from 10% to 7%. We provided exemptions for title changes and promotions if our board has approved a pay plan for certain job classifications or families. We addressed lateral transfers and we clarified compensation that can exceed the agency head. So just to talk about them specifically, their legislative intent and their funding mechanisms, they did not provide across-the-board increases for salary progressions, cost of living, or performance. That being said, the vast majority of the employees under our purview did receive funding for a 2% salary progression through the appropriation process. Like I said, it wasn't for everybody. There are a few exceptions. Some got a little more, some got less, but on the whole, it was roughly 2% for the entire state. And that should be reflected in your appropriations for FY25. For title changes, there wasn't a huge change to this. The only thing we changed was that if our board has approved a pay plan for your employees for an occupational group or a job family or specific classifications, those are now a noted exception in the VCP that they can get more than the 15% based on the board approved pay plan. And that's the exact same as for promotions. That's the only change, was just adding that if the board's approved a pay plan, you can award that money through title change and promotion, as well as for new hires. So lateral transfers have not been addressed, and based on several phone calls and emails over the past year, we felt like they needed to be addressed in the VCP. So this is just to clarify that lateral transfers are when you're moving from a position to a new position with the same pay grade. You are not eligible for 15% like you are for a promotion. You're still eligible for in-range adjustments like everyone else, but you're not eligible for the 15% if you laterally transfer from one position to another. In-range adjustments, again, the only change in this section was that the maximum percentage for the fiscal year dropped from 10% to 7%. Salaries that exceed the agency head, we only made a clarification here. There was no change in policy, but just we wanted to emphasize and clarify that when you're looking at salaries that exceed the agency head, you should consider the employee's entire salary when looking at it compared to the agency head. So type due, location pay, shift pay, FLSA overtime, all of that should be considered when looking at it from a standpoint of, does this employee make more than our agency head? So that's it for the VCP changes. The policy and procedures manual changed in a couple of places that are of note. The first is that the duration of referred lists has been reduced from 120 days down to 75 days. And we've also extended the time in which you can make an appointment from 15 days from the expiration of the list to 30 days from the expiration list. We know that some employers require a 30-day notice. And so the referred list will have to be actioned within 75 days, and the new hire from that list cannot be effective more than 30 days past the expiration date. So that's a change that y'all need to be aware of. That's coming July 1st. The board yesterday also authorized Kelly to create new worker levels within currently existing job families. He cannot create new management levels without going to our board for approval. We cannot create new occupational groups or job families without going to our board for approval. But if we have a situation where we need to create a new worker level within the currently existing family, we have that ability without going to the board now. So those are two changes. There's a third change, and it's that beginning July 1st, time limited and part-time positions will have to be recruited through NeoGov and come off of a referred list if they would otherwise be promotional if they weren't time limited. So this is a change that we didn't make lightly, but at the end of the day, we are tasked at the personnel board with maintaining a merit system, and every federal dollar this state received is contingent upon that merit system. And the one group of people we were not providing competitive recruitment for was the people paid with federal funds. So beginning July 1st, any hire for a time limited position or a part-time position will have to come off of a referred list. Other information and comments, the okay to rehire field in Employee Central is different than it was in SPARS. In SPARS, it just prevented that person from being rehired into your agency. Employee Central prevents that on an enterprise-wide basis. And so if one agency flags an employee as not okay to be rehired, they cannot be hired anywhere else in state government. And as y'all all are aware, there's no precluding offense that would keep you from being hired into state government, except for if you were convicted or pled guilty to embezzling public funds. So the only time someone should be flagged as no on eligible for rehire is if they have been convicted or pled guilty to embezzling of public funds. For agency heads appointed by a board or commission, pay increases require board minutes to be approved, and they should be prospective. This has come up with probably 5 or 6 in the past 5 or 6 months, where a board or commission will vote on April 15th to go back to April 1st. We have been advised by our attorneys that that cannot happen. We have to have signed and approved minutes that push the earliest it can be effective is the day of the board meeting, once the board minutes have been signed and approved. Okay, a letter from the chairman saying it was done is not sufficient. A letter from the secretary that keeps the minutes is not sufficient. They have to be signed and approved board minutes, and it cannot be effective until the day of the board meeting or after. So I know y'all are relying on y'all's attorneys to give y'all advice on this, but our attorneys and your attorneys are welcome to reach out to our attorneys, but right now, our attorneys have advised us that we, as a staff, cannot approve an agency head salary increase from before the board meeting date and without signing approved minutes. So just making y'all aware of that. This is more of a comment on justification in Employee Central. Just stating this will not create a salary inequity is not sufficient, especially when, if I look at all of your employees, it looks like there's going to be a salary inequity. So again, I know we've covered this several times, but I wanted to reemphasize it. We are looking for compare and contrast between the employee and their peers. It's not going to create inequity because this person has a certification that nobody else has. This person has more experience than anyone else. I don't need specifics. Sally has more experience than Johnny, but I need something more than this will not create an equity. This has been the case since 2006, but bank tellers and/or bank teller experience does not make someone an accountant. It comes up from time to time, so I'm just mentioning it. Team leads have to lead a team. That's been the case since we went live with this plan on January 1st of 22, but they can't be a team leader if they're not leading a team. All right. But we did it that way before is a great justification you guys give me, and I can't use that if it's going to violate our policy, law, or constitution. It's on us that we didn't catch it the first time, but we cannot continue once we know something is violating our policy or law or the Constitution. So I use the example, if just because you murdered someone last week and didn't get caught doesn't mean you can murder somebody again this week. All right. Conversion lockout date will be June the 14th at close of business. So that's coming up very quickly. This is something new, and I've got to talk to MMRS next time I meet with them, but we've had no instances of this for 2 years, and it seems like we've had like 7 or 8 in the past month. But once you've authorized a hire in NeoGov or submitted a hire in NeoGov and we've authorized it, there's several instances of agencies then going back in and then rejecting the hire and then requesting to reauthorize it because something's wrong with the hire, whether it was the wrong reason code was used, the wrong salary was used, the wrong date was used. Please just contact your analyst if something crosswalked incorrectly from EC, because it will then try to put the person in twice and it messes up the referred list. And so just if something goes wrong with the hire from NeoGov, please just call your analyst, email your analyst, and ask them to fix whatever's wrong. And then last but not least is your FY 2025 personal services amount. We received that information from Elbow yesterday. They have asked us to verify that they haven't shorted anyone, and Daniel is working on that today. We will have that back to Elbow at some point this afternoon. Once Elbow confirms that our calculations are correct, we'll be passing that information out to you early next week. I would anticipate Monday or Tuesday, your analyst will be reaching out to you with your personal services amount for FY 2025. All right. I think that is all I had. It is. So I will stop sharing, cut my camera on, and open it up for questions.
Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
this is Crystal at MEMA.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question for you.
Mhm.
Maybe a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. I have some pens, I believe, that are time limited that have X16 attached to them. Do those still have to be advertised or?
X16 positions do not fall under this. So it would just
Okay.
be your time limited pins who would otherwise have to be recruited, but for their time limited will then have to be time limited. So if you have a time limited admin assistant, you're going to have to post that.
Okay.
But if they have a dual status 14, 16, then you're fine.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Sure.
Another question, Ryan.
Sure.
When you say time limited and the posting of positions through NeoGov, does that mean the contract positions need to be advertised through NeoGov?
All right. I think I confused myself. Ask that again for me, Gwen.
Okay. For time limited positions and the advertising of time limited positions through NeoGov, does that mean that anytime we have a contract position, we advertise it through NeoGov?
Well, contract positions don't fall under our purview. Contract employees are through the PPRB.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I know the 75 and over, we go through them, but for those that make, let's say 20,000 in a year's time, I've been advertising them, but I haven't been doing anything through SPB or anybody else as far as that part is concerned.
Right. Now, contract workers don't have to be posted through us.
Okay, I just wanted to be on the safe side on
Yeah,
that.
we don't have that ability to hire them. I do have a couple questions in the chat. And Sheree, I saw you raise your hand. So if this is not, you have additional questions, go ahead and dive in. But are there pay increases for agency heads that do not require minutes to be approved? It depends on, so governor appointed agency heads, so cabinet positions, there's no board or commission. And so they would not require board minutes, but if your agency head is appointed by a board or commission and they want to give him an increase or her an increase, they have to have signed and approved minutes. All right. Lauren asked two questions. The first one is, what about the 2%? So the 2% each, and if you listen to the debate of the appropriation bills, they mentioned it on every single one of them, but funds were provided pretty much for everyone to award a 2% salary progression for every employee. Like I said, there are some who got a little bit more, there are some who got a little bit less, but ultimately the vast majority of people received 2% in their appropriation, and it should be reflected in your personal services amount to award a 2% salary progression. Anything else would have to be done beyond that through attrition. Second question, Lauren asked for an update on this Employee Central, SPARS, payroll, and we'll cover that last, I think. Let's see, Sharon's got her hand up, and then we'll dive back into the chat.
Hey, Ryan. So
Hey.
I just have a thing I just need a little bit of clarification on. So you said that when it comes to the executive director salaries or appointments, it has to be signed minutes in order for it to go into effect.
Mhm.
Well, my attorney from the Attorney General's office has told me that a board cannot have an emergency board meeting to sign minutes. It can only be done at a regular scheduled meeting. So then that puts you a whole month, or could be sometimes quarterly if a board doesn't meet, but quarterly. How should we handle that?
So your attorney needs to call my attorney.
Okay.
I'll tell y'all, I'll be, how do I say this nicely? If my attorney tells me something, whether I agree or disagree, ultimately, they're the ones that are going to defend me. And they've told me I can't. Oh, yeah, and they told me that I can't without it. And they've said that y'all can do that. So it might be a situation where your SAG needs to call my SAG and let them hash it out, because
Good deal.
I don't have an
Thank you.
opinion on it one way or the other.
Well, years before, as long as we had an emergency board meeting and they signed them, they approved them, then I could get them signed. But she was saying that it couldn't be a emergency meeting, that it had to be a regular schedule.
Well, and our attorneys never refer to them as emergency meetings. They refer to them as special called meetings.
Yes.
And that might be a distinction. I don't pretend to
Okay.
speak
I'll get with
legalese.
her and find out though.
Yeah,
Thank
and then she
you.
can call Heather and talk to her about it too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Melody asked, so social workers are exempt from selection, Melody. So if the jobs are exempt from selection, they do not have to be posted, whether they're permanent or time limited. So that doesn't, that will not change. Can okay to hire be changed to default to yes? That's something that I can certainly ask MMRS about. I know a couple of them are on this call, so, but we can certainly look into that, Jessica, and see, if we can do that to default it to yes. That's asked that. All right. Susie asked, will this be entered by the agency? I'm not 100% sure what. So if you could give me a little more on that, Susie. Have you discovered a quick way for us to get an accurate head count that is up to date? No. I mean, we can get close, but there's not a great way of doing that right now, Shelley. Would the 2% be able to be processed during conversion? I mean, we can. It's not going to necessarily be a across the board type situation. It's one of those that the agency's heads have the discretion to divvy that money up. So if you wanted us to, I think we probably could, but if not, you can just do them after conversion. And I think that kind of answers Susie's question too. You can certainly enter them in yourself if you want us to upload it. I don't see why we can't. For part-time in NeoGov, what salary would be put out there? I'm not sure the calculations in NeoGov, whether it posts the full-time salary or the part-time salary. I think in a perfect world, it would post the hourly rate for the part-time people, but I'm not sure. And that's, Ginger, if you'll get with Dewan's crew, they can probably better advise you on that than me. I'm not sure how NeoGov calculates the part-time rate when it's posting. Demetrius asked for those, if the 2% will not be processed during conversion, will the titles not receiving the 2% be provided? So there were no titles excluded, Demetrius. This would have been specific to an agency based on certain position levels and things like that. So there's not any titles that were excluded from the 2%. Will MSPB update our time limited positions end date and EC like it has in the past? Yeah, that will be handled during conversion. As we're converting through Employee Central, MMRS actually handles that for us. So But yeah, we'll take care of that during conversion. Shelley asked to repeat the head count. So right now, there's not a foolproof report in Employee Central that will provide you a head count. So unfortunately, if an agency dismisses an employee and do not wish to return to the agency and it's not embezzled, how is that handled? You just don't hire them back. I don't know how else to tell you, but our only statutory precluded offense is embezzlement of public funds. I'm not sure how the best way to handle it if you don't want to hire someone back and how you flag that person, but I can't have one agency stop someone from being hired somewhere else because of anything that was not embezzlement of public funds. All right, Lindsay mentioned that the title change slide mentioned lateral title changes and says they're eligible for 15%. That's probably a mistype on my part, Lindsay. It would be the same situation. You did interpret the slides correctly, but the slide was wrong. So thank you for catching that. And somebody asked if we'll provide these slides. Well, absolutely, we'll provide them, but I will clarify that slide before because title changes can be lateral, but they're not eligible for more money. So I will fix that on the slide before we send it out. Do we need to update prior no to rehire to prevent it from blocking the employee from returning to state employment? Yes, that would be ideal. If you flag somebody as no, and I mean, this only comes up, when somebody tries to hire them. But if you flag somebody as no and it wasn't embezzlement, you can ask us to get MMRS to update it. I don't think you're going to be able to update it, but MMRS can do that. All right, I've got a hand up. Not sure who it is. Lisa Hancock.
This is Lisa Hancock.
Your voice has gotten deeper, Lisa.
Okay, I guess. The 2%, does that count against your 7 that you're allowed for in ranges?
Yes. When do agencies need to enter PIN abolishments? So you can go and activate them now if you know you're losing headcount and don't want them reported anyway, then you can certainly go in and start inactivating them. We're going to work with MMRS on, I know there were some issues with several of you guys where you inactivated time limited pins, and then when we uploaded new end dates, it reactivated some inactive pins. So we're going to make sure that when we update the end dates, we only update the end dates on active time limited pins and not reactivate some that you've inactivated. Is there a way we can use MSP to help recruit for contract positions and internships? Possibly. That's something that we can certainly look at. How often does Personnel Board have board meetings, and how can we get on a list to receive the Zoom links? Our board meets the 3rd Thursday of every month. And so you can reach out to Brittany or MSP Communications if you want to get the Zoom link sent to you. Creating new, I'm assuming you mean creation of new headcounts, Robin, but so you can create those anytime after July 1st. You can go in and create position in Employee Central, and so long as what you're requesting makes sense, and then we have no problem creating that new position for you. We lost headcount through appropriations. We need to abolish those ourselves. Yeah, you'll need to go in and activate them. Just same way you would do a title change or a supervisor change, you just go to the position and change it from active to inactive. You inactivate them in the EC, it's an activation, and it will abolish them in SPARS. How can we get them permanently out of SPARS too? In theory, when you inactivate them in Employee Central, it should abolish them in SPARS.